India in details.
It is definitely one of the worst, if not the worst, moments when it comes to India-Canada diplomatic relations. But who is on Canada's side? And who is on India's side? Before I try to answer that, I would like to remind viewers that Canada is a state with a genocidal track record and is a terrible example of ongoing European expansionism on stolen or deceitfully acquired land. Not only that, Canada is also seen as an important puppet of the gang of the Western colonial criminal states that uses Canada for its own ugly geopolitical agenda. But there is definitely something fundamentally wrong with Canada. Yes, Canada is increasingly being seen as the Pakistan of the West. But actually, it's even more dangerous and in ways worse than Pakistan. Canada is more dangerous than Pakistan not only because it has more money than Pakistan, but also because it is an integral part of the gang of the Western colonial criminal states. Not only that, unlike Pakistan, it has managed to successfully portray its fake and shiny image to the world. So yes, India can easily defeat Pakistan on multiple fronts, but for India, it might take a lot more effort to defeat Canada. Canada is a safe haven for many who are described as India's enemies. And for many years, it has been a safe haven for Nazi war criminals, along with thousands of other war criminals from Europe. So, regarding this India versus Canada situation, which countries appear to be on Canada's side, and which countries are likely to support India? Let's take a look. Number 8. China. China seems to have been enjoying the ongoing difficult situation between India and Canada for a long time, and it seems that the dragon is trying to hit two birds with one stone. Its state-affiliated media criticizes the West and India at the same time, while presenting China as a good guy. However, Indians shouldn't forget China's ugly designs regarding the Khalistan issue, which has been exposed multiple times. In the 7th position, it is New Zealand. The country has already officially reacted to this situation. However, there is a twist. Read these lines here. It is still about allegations. Seems nothing is proven yet. So why is Canada creating all this drama in the first place? I will come to that later, but anyway, no surprise here. It was expected from Canada's Five Eyes ally. As usual, colonial criminal states often dance together. The 6th position. It is the USA. Here is the official statement. Seems to be supporting Canada here. But pay attention, once again, it's about the allegations coming from the Canadian side. It is well known that the USA itself has a track record of providing home to various European and Nazi war criminals, and in relation to the Khalistan issue, the USA has done a lot that has not pleased India. And as you may expect, the mainstream media in the USA is already targeting India on the basis of the so-called allegations. Take a look at this. And this. How misleading. The next one on the list is the UK. Its Foreign Office has already issued a statement that clearly says that it has full confidence in Canada's judicial system. Number 4. Germany, or one could also refer to it as the mother of Nazism. Despite the fact that the mother of Nazism has a genocidal and colonial track record, and despite the fact that its so-called democracy seems more like a hybrid regime with a neo-Nazi twist, Germany has the audacity to present itself as a liberal and a kind nation with very solid values and principles. The country has a decent track record when it comes to interfering in India's internal affairs, and it is very likely to support Canada in the ongoing situation. And let's not forget that pro-Khalistan elements have a connection to Germany. Number 3. Australia. Governments can change in Australia. There can be ups or downs, but one thing, more or less, stays the same. Australia's servitude, its loyalty towards the USA and the US-led institutions. But Australia also knows the geopolitical importance of India, and that's why it seems to be taking a careful and balanced diplomatic approach here. Let's not forget that Australia has been described as the puppet state of the USA, and as a member of the Five Eyes alliance, Australia is likely to face a lot of pressure from its Five Eyes partners regarding the ongoing situation. Number 2. Bangladesh. Despite the fact that back in 2023, some felt that Bangladesh backed India on the Khalistan issue, it seems that this time around, things have changed a lot. Animosity for India and its increasingly closer ties with Pakistan can create a new geopolitical headache for India. Number 1. Pakistan. There is no surprise that the country has been described as a key sponsor of the Khalistan movement, aiming to destabilize India. Pakistan's connection with terrorism has brought the country a lot of shame globally, and it's a pity that today Canada seems to be following Pakistan's footsteps shamelessly. According to Kugelman of the Wilson Center, India has started to treat Canada like it treats Pakistan, at least in terms of blistering diplomatic statements and the accusations that Canada is sponsoring terrorism. Most countries around the world are expected to play it neutral as far as the rift between India and Canada is concerned. However, India can expect some support emerging from the global south, particularly from the countries that have been facing the neo-colonial heat from Canada. But their geopolitical impact is likely to be limited, very limited. When it comes to the major players, many Indians would think of Russia. Well, the Russian media outlet RT has already tried to impress India by posting this to mock Justin Trudeau. But then, why is it that the same media outlet RT also gives its platform to a pro-Khalistan element who is based in Moscow? Take a look at this rubbish that this Moscow-based author writes. Please go through it carefully. His name is Andrew Korybko. Of course, he also appears on RT. He is an important pro-Russia asset for Russians. His articles get published on geopolitica.ru, a website that many Russians find credible and a reliable source of information. You may not see Indian media outlets and many others revealing this pro-Khalistani side of Andrew Korybko, who has also been saying sweet and wonderful things about India. If Russia is truly India's friend, then can it take appropriate action against these rubbish articles and check the source of this man's funding and his true intentions? His actions are potentially brainwashing many Russians about the sensitive Khalistan issue. Can Indian authorities ask Russia to remove this kind of content from Russian websites? Especially from geopolitica.ru, which is said to be connected to this man, who is referred to as a Putin's philosopher. If India cannot tolerate the pro-Khalistani elements in Canada, Germany, or in the USA, how can it tolerate any pro-Khalistani element in Russia? So after all, who is India's true friend then? Perhaps only this. Take a look at this flag. But what does this flag represent? It may be described as the flag of dharmic resistance. The artist who created this digital art says that this flag symbolizes dharmic resistance against colonization and repression. On so many occasions, India and Hindus are alone, fighting their battles alone. According to Daniel Boardman, India is a country with 1.5 billion people, the only potential economy with the human capital to counter Chinese manufacturing capacity. And India is needed as a wedge against the potential regional and global dominance of China and the CCP. Mr. Boardman also reminds us that India came to the aid of the West, especially Canada, during COVID and asked nothing in return. But despite India's good gestures, as explained here, ISI-funded Khalistani movement has been allowed to flourish in Canada. According to the Canadian journalist, India needs to be treated as an equal and true ally. No reasonable ally would tolerate what Canada has enabled for the last 4 decades in regard to the violent Khalistani movement. India has said it again and again. Canada has presented no evidence. So if Justin Trudeau is lying, why is he doing all this? Why is he trying to pick a fight? As highlighted here, is it about running away from serious troubles at home? Does he care about Canadians' lives? If yes, then how about those Canadians who didn't survive the Air India bombing? As described here, the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. Now pause the video and read what the Canadian journalist Daniel Boardman thinks of Khalistanis. Canada's downfall has begun. After all, when a country starts referring to terrorists or criminals as leaders, it can be said that it is more or less following the steps of Pakistan. But Canada might please the fellow Western colonial criminal states by dancing to their tunes for some time. But when you keep terrorists or criminals in your country, hoping to use them to create a sort of neo-colonial pressure against a former colony, you are actually playing with fire, because the venom you are storing in your house can eventually harm you too. The West seems scared of India. Why? It is quite simple. When former colonies rise, former colonists get frightened. They know that their hidden crimes can be uncovered, and they know that it won't be easy to escape justice. But India was not just another colony. It was the place where more than $45 trillion were looted by Europeans. It is the place where some of the worst crimes against humanity were committed by European criminals who were Christians. A crime scene that they want to be covered and hidden as long as they can. Remember, India is a former colony that is emerging as a superpower. It is not a small development. It is a huge development that is going to bring a paradigm shift in our world's history. Just like criminals want to cover their worst crimes first, efforts were made immediately to contain India from the very beginning. Many Western colonial criminal states appeared quite satisfied when Pakistan was carved out of India, as the West used Pakistan as a puppet to keep India in check for a long time. But as Pakistan eventually chose to become China's puppet, the West has had to find new ways to keep India, a former colony, in check. Converting India into a South Korea kind of Western puppet can be difficult, but efforts have been made anyway. Cultural colonization of India through religious conversion and Western commercial monoculture are useful too, but to control or influence how a big nation like India thinks is not going to be easy. They need more tools. The so-called brown sahibs can be used too. They can be manufactured by the Western ecosystem to keep Indians emotionally colonized. But even that is probably not enough. They may require the so-called Khalistanis and others to put neo-colonial pressure on India. The idea could be to bring India to its knees, if and when required. Of course, it is in the West's interest that when India becomes a superpower, it is the West's friend, ally, or puppet, and not a nation that seeks justice for the colonial crimes. The West's situation is quite pathetic actually. On the one hand, the West needs India to sustain their own economy and counterbalance China, and on the other hand, they seem scared when in several years they imagine seeing a confident, united, emotionally decolonized former colony as a superpower, ready to lead the world and to topple the Western colonial criminal state's hegemony and uncover their crimes. But remember, Bharat will not surrender to their ugly designs. True Bhartiyas will resist. We will resist. See you again.